Hi there, everyone. I'm Dan Jones. Welcome to interCHANGE. We've got a lot to talk about today. We'll get some opinions on the no smoking ban, which goes into effect here in Wisconsin Monday. We'll talk about President Obama's appearance in Racine this past week. We will talk about the big job that lays ahead for the new superintendent of Milwaukee Public Schools. And we will talk about the latest plan to revive an ailing downtown Milwaukee. Okay, joining us tonight, our newspaper columnist, Joel McNally. Kevin Fischer, aide to Republican State Senator Mary Lazarus, and oftentimes a host over at WISN Radio. Denise Callaway, she's the communications director for the Greater Milwaukee Foundation. And Gerard Randall, consultant and local job creation expert. Rick Horowitz will be along with commentary at the end of the show. All right, the first thing we'll talk about is the no smoking in public buildings law, which goes into effect statewide on Monday. We'll finally be able to walk in bars and restaurants, not have to put up with that stinky cloud of smoke floating through the air. Now, I was a long-time smoker, but I, for one, think this new law is great, and I don't think it's going to hurt businesses at all.
Well, how can it hurt businesses if all businesses have to abide by it? The various bars and restaurants kept making that claim. If you do it here in Milwaukee, they'll just go across the line somewhere else. Statewide is exactly right and exactly what it should be. These are workplaces. People have to work in these places. We cannot conduct unsafe workplaces and have people working in places where we now know that secondary smoke is deadly. Affects your health even if you're not a smoker. And there's never been an excuse not to just ban it completely once we became aware of that fact. I hear nothing but good things from people about this going into effect. I hear very few people grumbling that my rights are being violated.
You didn't get over to me yet.
Not. You have no right to affect the health of people around you. That is no right.
Denise, I know a lot of bar owners, and many of them cannot stand this law. They feel that if people want to smoke, they should be able to come into their bar and smoke, and if people don't like smoke, well, they can go somewhere else. And if people don't like smoke, well, they can go work somewhere else.
Well, there are, as Joe was saying, health consequences to this. In Wisconsin, we have 900 people a year who die because they've been exposed repeatedly to secondhand smoke. A lot of those people are people who tend to work in bars and restaurants. So I don't think people should have to make a decision about where they're going to work and how it's going to impact their health in such a negative way. And I do think that I think some of those owners are kind of overreaching in terms of their concerns about that, because there are some of us, and I'm one of them, who doesn't go into bars and other places where there's a lot of smoking because I don't want to be exposed to it. I don't want to smell like smoke when I come out of there and have to get things laundered and dry cleaned. So I think you are going to find some people who are coming to establishments now who didn't before because they don't have to deal with the smoke. So I think that's going to counterbalance some of those concerns that they have.
Kevin, a bar owner was telling me the other day, I don't want the government in my bar. But you know
Smart
what?
person.
The government tells you what temperature you have to keep your soda at. The government tells you where the meat has to be kept in the kitchen. I mean, the government's in your business.
I understand. Smoking, though, is a legal exercise. Tobacco is a legal product. And I, too, I don't smoke. I don't like the smell of smoke. I don't like having my clothes smell like smoke after I've been exposed to smoke. However, I believe that the private business owner is correct in saying that the public sector should stay out of his business and not tell him or her how to run his business. I hope you are all right that this will not negatively impact business in Wisconsin. But I have to tell you, before we had this statewide ban and any municipality in the state could pass any kind of law it wanted to, the city of Madison had a smoking ban. And what happened? Over 30 bars and taverns had to close up because their business failed. Now, I've looked at
bars and restaurants fail all the time. That's got nothing to do with this law.
Well, there's no place else for them to go. This had a direct impact. Now, I've looked at the law, and one thing that, and we talked about it on the show ad nauseum. One of the areas that bothers me is that we're going to ban smoking in veterans' homes in Wisconsin. Now, think about that. We're going to tell a soldier, a veteran, who may have had his or her arm or leg blown off defending our country, that he or she now cannot sit in a wheelchair or lie in bed and have a cigarette. That is just, to me, disgusting. But somehow Jim Doyle's casinos that bankrolled his campaign, they can have smoking. I guess those workers we can have those workers go in and be subject to secondhand and smoke.
Shut it down there too.
I agree, but apparently not.
This thing, first off, there's the loophole that I think many bar owners are going to take advantage of, many bar and restaurant owners are going to take advantage of, and that's the window loophole. You're going to see a lot of retrofitting of walls with large open windows that will allow them to allow smokers to.
Good luck all winter long.
Well, but I'll tell you this. It still comes down to the fact that it's all about choices. People choose to smoke. It's a legal product. Bar owners, restaurant owners, they choose to make available their premises for those who want to smoke in their premises and those who want to work in their premises. And if you don't want to smoke there, you don't want to work there, or you don't want to permit it there, that should be the choice of that responsible person.
In this economy, you can't tell anyone not to take a minimum wage job if they can get it anywhere.
Well, you know what? That's not the premise for any of this. If that were going to be the argument, then you would have to look to all of those places, those small mom and pop operations that operate in resort communities dotted all throughout the upper 2/3 of this state, and tell them that what you're attempting to do or what you're going to do shouldn't have any impact on them either. And it will. It most certainly will. And those are going to be the places that I think you're going to, that's right, you're going to have an enforcement problem
according to law, there's going to be a, quote, person in charge at every bar, restaurant, what have you, it is that person's responsibility to make sure that the law is being upheld. Now, you could set up all kinds of problematic scenarios where, that person in charge is not going to be able to control the situation. And what are you going to do? Are you going to have the city of Milwaukee police bureaucrats going in with clipboards, checking to make sure that they better not be?
They're not going to do that. You're going to see smoking. You're going to see smoking happen just like you see those little gaming machines that are all throughout this city that are just as illegal. It's not enforceable.
It is not worthless.
All right, next topic. How about President Obama's appearance in Racine this past week to talk about how good the economy is and how everything his administration is doing is working just fine? I know he's in eternal campaign mode, but is he in a fantasy world too? Has he looked at the jobless numbers? Has he looked at the stock market? Has he looked at any of this stuff?
Well, he did say, he didn't say the economy is just fine. What he said was that we are making some progress, and we are. Is it the kind of progress anybody wants to see? Of course not, but there is progress that's being made. If we take a look at what happened in terms of jobs that were lost when President Obama came into office, we were losing 250,000 jobs a month, primarily in the private sector. When we take a look at the unemployment rates that were just released in June, yes, we did have a net job loss, primarily from census workers whose jobs ended. But we did see something that is promising. We saw about 83,000 jobs that were created in the private sector. And as we all know, that's the key. When we take a look at where job growth is going to come from, it's going to come from the private sector. The other thing that was good news, particularly for us here in Wisconsin, is when we take a look at where those jobs were created, a good percentage of them were created in the manufacturing sector. And since that's one of our strengths here, that's good news for us. I can already hear it. But when we say, when are things going to get better? If you take a look at this recession and compare it to other recessions over the past 20 years, you have seen a dip that has been faster and harder than anything else that we've seen. So it's going to take time for us to come out of this. If there were a magical thing that could have been done, it would have been done. One of the magical things that could have happened it was worse. And one of the magical things that could have happened is if Congress, particularly the Senate, would have been able to find a way to work together on some of these job creation bills, we see some of those numbers going up even higher.
Gentlemen, it's sacrilegious to criticize this guy, but I think you're going to do it.
Oh, you're absolutely right, because I think his credibility is shot when it comes to what he's laid out to the public as an economic fix and what's actually happening. The numbers don't lie. The numbers are telling us that private sector jobs are not increasing at the pace that they need to increase over the next 8 years just to get us back to where we were in 2008. The private sector jobs are in competition with government sector jobs. The Census Bureau jobs notwithstanding, those jobs that are being created in the government sector are at a faster pace. Those jobs will continue to grow. And unfortunately, those are the jobs that carry with it the benefit packages that are unsustainable unless you increase taxes in order to pay for it, or you cut government spending someplace in order to offset that growth in government jobs.
What's this competition between the government and the private? Let me tell you, there is no competition.
Absolutely is competition.
There is no competition because you just said the private sector jobs are not being created. If the private sector jobs are not being created, that's exactly why government has to create jobs. And to me, this is the appalling thing about, and I was really happy with the sort of feisty, take it to the Republicans kind of attitude that the president did in Racine, because
his own administration said he was wrong.
You know what he's been doing in his entire administration?
His own administration said he was wrong.
His entire administration, he's been reaching to Republicans, reaching to Republicans, reaching to Republicans. They've been kicking him in the teeth every time. He reached to them on health care, they kicked him in the teeth. He reached to them on let's create some jobs, they kicked him in the teeth. He reached to them on let's clean up the financial mess, put some regulations on the banks, they're kicking him to the teeth on that. Now, the people on the left have been very upset about Obama reaching to the Republicans all the time because the Republicans are simply voting no. And when you vote no on recovery, in a recession, when you vote no on job creation, you're voting. The Republicans took the position that if Obama fails, they're going to do well in the next election. But if Obama fails, America fails. They're voting for America to fail.
I'm going to concede one thing to you. Yes, Republicans have, I think, sometimes to their political peril, voted no. When there were pieces, there were pieces of the package that were supportable. Not everything that the president has proposed has been something that we should have thrown an automatic talk to the hand on, but we have. There have been pieces, though, and the majority of his package have been pieces that, frankly, given Republican philosophy, are absolutely unsupportable.
They've been very moderate.
And they don't work.
They've been
those
very
pieces
moderate.
That he has put in place.
They've been far more moderate than people on the left would like to see.
Could he get another stimulus package through?
Well, this is what he's trying. This is what he's trying to do, and let's pray to God that it doesn't happen because it was.
It would put
disaster.
people to work and extend unemployment.
We wouldn't want to put people to work.
The president was fundamentally dishonest to the people of Racine, who are suffering mightily from this recession. He got up there and bragged about this wonderful economy. Now, this is the same president who said, let me finish, all right? This is the same president who said, my stimulus package, we won't see unemployment surpass 8%. Well, it went over 10%, and then what happened? This president said, well, we have to give it time. We have to let it work. It's still in the high 9s, and he's saying, hey, it's okay. It could have been a lot worse. It could be 12, 13%. So now we're forbidden from criticizing the great Obama-Messiah. We're supposed to genuflect and say, oh, thank you that it's not worse. Well, the numbers don't lie. His popularity figures are down in the toilet, and most Americans, by a wide margin, say this country is headed in the right direction. Now, I don't know what figures they're looking at, but it's an insult for the president to come to Racine and tell the entire country was just sitting home with pink slips that the economy is just rolling.
And that's not what he said. He didn't come close to saying that at all.
All right, next topic.
I don't know what speech you were watching.
Well, the one that was on TV. I guess maybe you must have been there.
Where he said the economy is recovering, which is a bunch of bull.
Gregory Thornton, the new superintendent of Milwaukee Public Schools, started his job here this week. They're paying him more than $250,000 a year, so I hope they hold his feet to the fire. He's got a big job to do. Is he going to steady what a lot of people say right now is a sinking ship? He's got a lot to do, and a lot is beyond his control.
He does have a lot to do. He's a very qualified choice, though. I think the way he's united the school board and around him, I think the experience he brings, having been the #2 in Philadelphia, and then chosen by the governor of Pennsylvania to take over a smaller school district that was failing, to turn that one around. I think he brings a lot of tools. He brings a lot of charisma. He's a very sharp guy. He's just gotten in town. People don't even know him yet, but I'm telling you, when they get to know him, I think they're going to be impressed. I think he's going to put things on the right track. He's putting this responsibility on himself. He's not ducking it, and I think he's ready to lead, and I think he's an excellent choice. He's going to have to deliver. There's no question about that. But have been as encouraged. I think I've been more encouraged meeting him and hearing him than I have for the past 2 or 3 superintendents, to tell you the truth. And I think we should give this guy a good chance and rally around him.
But if he doesn't turn things around, are people going to say the same thing they say year after year? Well, the problems are bigger than the school district. It's the broken families. It's the mobile families who move from school to school. It's the joblessness. It's things that the school superintendent cannot control.
Finally, a topic that unites us all. I think first off, it was a great choice, and one of the things that I've seen him do over the last several weeks is pick a team that I think is up to the challenge that MPS faces. A number of them are from out of town. They are people that are respected in their fields. They've been recognized as those who are able to turn around a large district and show some successes. Last night, the school board voted on a new literacy program. There was time that was taken out first by the superintendent and his team to determine whether or not this literacy program was the right program. They did a thorough review. The board was very happy with ultimately what was done. There are some other areas where certainly they're going to make some changes around fiscal accountability. They're trying to get their hands around the teacher contract and some of the aspects of that drive cost. So I think he's got certainly a lot on his plate that he's hit the ground running on. He's made a commitment to go out and visit 5 schools a week. I think that's a pretty laudable but lofty goal. And he's going to do it. He's got the energy to do it. He's got the people in place that can help make sure that he gets this job done to the satisfaction of the people in this community.
The teachers union could make this pretty dirty, though.
Well, there's always been tension between those factions, and I suspect that'll happen this time around too. We all want MPS to succeed. We may disagree on how to get there, but we all want the school system to do well. And I think the odds are against this guy. He deserves a chance. He deserves time. He just got in the job. We need to see what he can do and give him some latitude. But the life expectancy of urban school superintendents is very short. The problems are very huge. You almost have to bust up the system and try something radically different, and nobody wants to do that, it seems. So I wish him well, but again, I think the percentages are going to work against this poor guy because no one's been able to do it. A lot of people thought Howard Fuller was the savior. He couldn't save the system. His successors couldn't do it. I wish him well, but he's got a really tough road.
I think, and as someone who has been there when Howard Fuller was there and Bob Jasnin was there and Barbara Horton was there, I think the problem is what all of us have kind of reinforced here about what is he going to do. By himself, he will do nothing. The best thing that he's going to be able to do is not only have a great team in place internally, he needs to be able to mobilize a team in the community, teams of business leaders, teams of parents, teams of, yes, teachers, to really find ways that people will be able to work together to come to the solutions. If we say, what's he going to be able to do, the reality of it is, and we didn't need to have a whole parade of superintendents to know this, is that one person can do nothing. If we as a community decide that he's a person who has the skills to lead us and we get behind him,
right.
He will be able to do something. If we don't, it's going to he's going to be one be one of a parade of superintendents that we've had over the past 20 years.
And there were a lot of people coming out to fight over the mayor versus the board.
Well, yeah.
If both of those sides now come out and get behind this guy, including the mayor and the governor, and I haven't seen him yet. That's what we need. We need to bring all of those parties together.
And it's not because he hasn't made overtures. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Because he hasn't made overtures to those 2 political leaders to get them on board. He's been hired now.
Yes.
They have to support him, or they have to be seen as antagonists that are not helpful to improving the education.
And they will support him because the stakes are too high.
Hello. There's a kindly elderly woman I see just about every Sunday when I go have lunch at Meyer's restaurant who says that, I interrupt too much on this program. I hope she's watching tonight. Okay, take number 5. Denise is right. If we can get those 2 elements to work together with the school system, parents and businesses, which have not always been there, then he's got a solid chance at doing something.
All right, last topic, just for a few minutes. About a decade ago, Milwaukee officials unveiled a redevelopment plan for the downtown area. It called for, among other things, expanding the Riverwalk, a new public market, a new and improved Amtrak station. All of that was accomplished. This week, they unveiled a new plan. This time it calls for an improved area just north of that Park East corridor land, a redeveloped MacArthur Square, which is badly needed, some improvements to Wisconsin Avenue. If you could wave a magic wand, first and foremost, what would you do to improve the downtown?
Replace Grand Avenue with something that works. And that wasn't in the next 10-year plan.
You know, I was there. I went there for lunch today, and it is such an incredibly gorgeous building. I have never been able to figure out why that didn't work. It is so beautiful.
Well, it did work for a while, and then it became like the old mall, and when are we going to build a new one or something? And because that's the one all the black people still go to, and so we're going to have a new one somewhere else. I think it still has a lot of potential. I think one of those ideas could have been that public market with all that stuff that is, while that was cited as something that worked over the past 10 years, it hasn't been working real well. But why didn't they talk about putting that there instead of under the freeway somewhere where it's not being very successful? It takes imagination, I think, to create a centerpiece there, but I don't think it's out of the question.
I think you need people on your main street at night,
and
there is nobody on Wisconsin Avenue at night.
There's hardly anybody there during the day. I think that's really a key piece that's going to have to be addressed in order for this to be successful. I think one of the interesting things that they have done in this plan is to call for these corridors to be connected, to be created that try to connect successful parts of the downtown area, like the Third Ward, for example, using Broadway to connect it to the rest of downtown. But, to me, Wisconsin Avenue and the lack of viable retail that's going to draw people there, to me, that's the key thing. You're right. You don't go into any successful downtown in any urban community where you don't have the main street that's alive and vibrant. And until Wisconsin Avenue is, I think it's going to be a problem.
I get that every time I drive down Wisconsin Avenue at night going, why isn't this passed?
3 things, okay? I'll be very quick. Give people a reason to come down. And you can fill in the blanks all you want. Retail, theater, a casino. I know that's out of the question now. A stadium is out of the question. But you give people reasons to come down. Then you allow accessibility. You allow them to park. You don't make it difficult for them to drive down here. That's been a problem since the Norquist administration. Let people park down here, for heaven's sakes. And the third thing, I believe downtown is incredibly safe, but there is a perception that it's not. Work to destroy that misperception that people that live, west of Waukesha don't have to be afraid to come here.
I don't know how you can change that because it is so safe.
I agree.
Because there is nobody there.
Far more complex than I think even this plan will allow for. They have to decide whether or not they want downtown to primarily to be recreational or primarily retail. Retail certainly hasn't worked, is not going to work. So I would lean to the recreational. They have to beef up the facilities that rely on convention business, facilities that rely on sports patrons and restaurants.
Fill up those empty spaces.
But, there's a way to do both, and cities like Indianapolis have been able to do that very successfully.
All right. When you're trying to figure out a city's future, you can use a master plan. But when you're trying to figure out the future of the U.S. Supreme Court, you have hearings. Elena Kagan had her hearings this week before the Senate Judiciary Committee, and of course, Rick Horowitz was watching. He may not have learned much about Kagan, but he always learns plenty about certain senators. Rick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and fellow members of our committee. I'll keep this opening statement brief because I'm looking forward to hearing from our deeply flawed and dangerous nominee. Mr. Chairman, I've been willing to keep an open mind like I always do, but I have to admit what I've heard leading up to this hearing troubles me greatly, because the last thing this country needs right now is more archivist judges. Archivist judges are the reason America's off on the wrong track these days and why people have so little respect for our institutions. I've been in institutions, Mr. Chairman, so I know what I'm talking about. Archivist judges keep documents in archives, all kinds of documents with all kinds of information in them. It's like the census, Mr. Chairman, only worse, because archivist judges can hide some of the worst documents right under their robes. They also have these filing systems. That's what they call them, Mr. Chairman, filing systems, where they keep data, and not just new data either, but data that goes back decades. So what happens to our liberties, Mr. Chairman, when you have all these archivist judges with their file boxes and their hard drives? Our founding fathers would be rolling over in their graves, Mr. Chairman, and if I was in a grave, I'd be rolling over too, right alongside them. Mr. Chairman, I know for a fact that this nominee has associated with plenty of archivist judges in the past, including some very prominent archivist judges. And it wouldn't surprise me at all, Mr. Chairman, to find out that this nominee even associates with known librarians. I'm sure the President was aware of all that when he chose this particular nominee, and I'll bet he's having a good laugh over at the White House right now, thinking that he's put one over on us and that we won't notice what the first 3 letters of librarian are. Well, think again, Mr. President. You have to get up pretty early in the morning to fool this senator, and it's already the middle of the afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, Rick, and thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a wonderful holiday.